Hi, we're back with another episode of Revivalcast. Today is all about housing. We have our housing guru from the forums, Calidora, with us, and we also have game dev Kedhrin with us. So I hope we'll have a lot to talk about. We just had a dev blog from Kedhrin this Friday about the estate of estates. Um, but yeah, hopefully, I want to also get some general vision of what Kadrin is expecting the year to look like, what his vision is, and also to get some more information about Calidora's interest in the housing since she's our guru. So I'm going to start with Calidora actually. She's been doing such a great job of giving us of chronicling the different layouts of the renovation kits and the different estates. Um, so, Dora, introduce yourself to those who aren't familiar with you, and let us know a little of your background and why you're so interested in housing for revival.
Hi, I'm interested in housing because I'm a girl and I like decorating. Um, that's typically it. I role play. I've role played for many, many, many years, so a lot of that takes place in housing.
Okie dokie. And Kadrian, our game dev. Go ahead and introduce yourself. You haven't been on this year yet. I think we had you on a couple of times last year.
Mhm.
Housing and the especially the mechanics of how that works is one of your fortes. That's usually what your um, videos are about. You usually come on once we're close to showcasing those. What's your vision of going forward, and what were some of the hiccups that you weren't expecting? What were some of the challenges that you had that you weren't expecting this past year?
Absolutely. So I'm Kedhrin. I'm the creative director on Revival. And I'm also one of the co-founders of Ilphonic. So I pretty much have been, spearheading the project and like kind of, it's been my big thing with housing. Kind of, you know, is an obsession that reaches back to like Ultima Online days of like the Wild West of housing and that first introduction and the joy of decorating houses and stuff like that. And so for me, it was like always something like I knew it would be important for people in this style of game how important housing is. But one thing I always felt bad about with housing in MMOs was they always felt like there was something that diminished the quality of the entire world itself because they were just like in Ultima Online. You'd be walking through the woods and all of a sudden there's just houses everywhere, just all over the place, and it was just to me it kind of just ruined the world a bit. And I always like the thought process of having developer, especially artist driven placement of houses, the houses being set dressed, really immersed in the world, um, and them actually having meaning. They're not buildings aren't just here. There's another building. There's another building. It's like this. No, that's someone's home. That's someone's livelihood. Everything. So for me, it's like it's definitely like I've had discussions before. It's like, oh, well, you could do more if you just allow people to build houses or freedom to create stuff. And I was like, it just kind of it goes against, I think, the vision that Adam, Chris, and I have on what the world of revival should be, and that it takes the world seriously. And we take it very seriously. Um, so over the past, since we've been making and releasing the stage one, we decided let's take this, through the 6 stages of revival that's on the website. We were like, okay, we need to go through stage one, which is get the interior houses done. And the reason why we wanted to do that first was because it tackles a couple theories. One is our modular system theory, which is like little pieces of the buildings and how they come together. Um, Upgradable stuff, so switching it out. What can people do to upgrade everything? Um, and things like that. So, whenever I worked on an MMO called Auto Assault back in the mid 2000s, housing was introduced and it was very tacked on. It was very like, I mean, there's so many things just tacked onto that game in general, but
It's almost always a later feature
mhm.
in MMORPGs, especially. Almost always feels like it's kind of tacked on. Even I think it was available from the get go with EverQuest 2. but
Hmm.
it still seemed like that would have been one of the last things that they added versus
Sure.
starting with it. Yeah.
A
So
lot of
this is
people,
very unusual. Feels great, I think.
yeah, and a lot of developers they'll spend time actually focusing so much energy on the character customization because they know it's really important, and we believe it's really important too. Um, and we're definitely put a lot of energy in there, but it's like that's in the beginning of the game, right? The house is beyond an extension of your character. It's beyond that because you might have multiple houses. You might be turning into some sort of real estate person. You might be running in a guild and have to manage all these houses, or you live in multiple cities and things like that. So, um, we believe that it's really critical because you're going to want to spend time in your house. You're going to want to decorate it. You're going to want to invite friends over. You're going to want to do all the fun stuff. It's exciting. It's your version. It's your way to create. And I think we took it very seriously. That's why we spent so much time on the house decorate tool, which all those definitely I'm glad we did them because it was in that order because every single one of those had things we weren't aware of because we switched the engines from CryEngine to Unreal Engine 4, and so we have a lot to learn about Unreal still.
Yeah, that
And
was just about a year ago that you made that switch. February, right? Was it
I think
January,
so.
February of?
January, I think of
Hmm.
20 or 2015. Yeah,
Hmm.
and so there are certainly things that the engine doesn't support properly, which that's always a problem as you go forward in development and you're trying to make everything, and you always come to these roadblocks of the engine doesn't want to do this, but our design wants to do it really bad. So Adam, Chris, and I always have to come to some sort of compromise, especially with engineering. And we're completely always able to compromise and stuff, and we generally are really nice about that stuff. But is okay. So what can we get away with to try to get close to what that vision is, and then maybe at a later time come back to it. So that's, for example, the reason why we released the renovation kits. Sorry, there's a siren outside. Uh, what it took so long because there was this bug with the dynamic props being moved inside these renovation kit rooms, like a base. And whenever the level would spawn, it's like, okay, I need to change that room, swap it out with another piece, and put the vase in there. But then the vase would just pop out into the outside of the house for some reason because it was like the physics were being initialized wrong or something like that. So we were just like, whoa, let's not. It sucks. It goes against the vision, but let's at least release it right now and come back to it later and fix it. So but at least you can still move and decorate everything, which in my opinion, that's the fun stuff. So we want to really encourage that.
Yeah, it's really interesting too to have not just a home so early, but to have props available and have it, even in a tenement, to have
Mhm.
plates and some vases and,
Yeah.
bucket here or there, one bed with, I mean, I might want to have blankets at some point that I can place over there, but it's great to just walk in and have it partially furnished,
Hmm.
um, and be able to move stuff around in there. I mean, that's another thing that you're usually, even if you have a house, then you have to wait until you can acquire furniture and all that stuff. So it's nice to have that, and hopefully that will, once we can visit each other's houses, that will already open the door to role playing.
Hmm.
Um,
So that's definitely something I'm really pushing for, and I'm always been pretty open with everything and what our hurdles are, and right now the biggest thing stopping that because we can because the database and the server infrastructure of what an MMO is, it's going to take a while, right? It's a beast, and it has to be made properly. It can't be rushed. But in the meantime, we can at least build the system to be, um, what's called peer-to-peer connection. Like you're essentially just tapping into somebody's IP and going like just playing with them. But the problem is we don't have a matchmaking system like what Steam usually handles that handles stuff like NAT port forwarding and punching holes and NAT punching and all that stuff. And so we either got to be like we got to find some middleware that will handle that for us and it runs in the background, or we got to release on Steam, which I really don't want to do right now because it's that's a whole other beast. I don't think Revival in its current state would do um, much justice on Steam right now. I mean, it is like it's limiting the market, but at the same time, it's like I like being fully independent right now. It feels nice. I do agree that I need to be doing more. Now, once the states are released, I'm like, get stage one done so I can just start talking to press everywhere because I don't even bother them right now. So
Mhm.
I want to get more awareness about the game right now. So, but yeah, sorry, I just went off on a random tangent
Nope, that's okay. That's
there.
okay. So, Calidora, you have what type of housing do you have right now in the game?
I have a manse and a farm.
And a farm, you said?
Yeah, like a
Uh,
cottage on farmland.
cottage. Okay, great.
Awesome.
And wow, you have a manse. And so, what kind of renovation kits did you get for your manse?
The alchemy lab.
Oh, okay. And just one? Does a manse only come with one? I don't remember how many renovation kits come with each level.
Depending on the layout, you can have two. Some of them had more, I think, but
Mhm.
mine only has one.
And you can swap them out. So if you wanted to, um, say, add a laboratory or a art room, you could, but you'd have to swap them out. You couldn't have them both active at the same time, right?
Yes. As far as I understand, though, if you've done anything to the room, it destroys anything that you've done when you swap them out and bring them back.
Hmm.
So that would just kill me.
Right, right. So did you actually go through and move things around and set them up exactly the way you like it? That's what it's sounding like to me.
Oh my God. I had my manse completely decorated until I noticed that 790 on the wood, and then I destroyed everything. I found it like 15 times and on all sorts of different wood. And I, by the way, there's nothing behind any painting. I know, I looked.
Okay. So tell me about this 790. I saw something about it in the forums, but I don't know exactly what happened with it. So is this just a number that appears somewhere on the wood, or what happens?
Yeah, I was decorating and happened to notice the 790 on the wood and freaked out. And then I started looking on everything else, and it was everywhere, everywhere on many different kinds of wood. I found it behind the guest room bedpost. I found it underneath crap. I was moving things over to the lights so I could see underneath them. I found it everywhere.
So what is that, Kedrin? What is it that we're seeing there,
um,
or why is it there?
I don't think we're ready to disclose that
Oh, okay. All right. So
yet.
um, maybe I should ask: is it a feature or a bug? That's what we often
I
talk
wouldn't
about in
consider it a
QA.
bug. I just say I wouldn't
Okay.
consider it a bug.
Okay. All right. That's really fascinating. Yeah. It's funny because it seems to me that, like I said, as soon as we're able to visit each other's homes, the role playing can start. Um, and there's just tiny things kind of like that that devs could do to mess with us. An example I give is, say there's a painting of a um, cats in Bastet's Rest. And then, we have people over every day we log in, our painting has cats in it. And then one day we notice that painting doesn't have cats in it. What swap out all of those paintings
I
with a
mean,
version that
that's
doesn't have cats. And that's a story right there. And it doesn't even take a lot of work.
yeah. I mean, and you're gonna well. I mean, right now, if you guys notice, like all the paintings and stuff, we definitely are a lot of them are placeholder stuff. Uh, but as we develop, there's going to be, and I know Adam and Holtorf, especially in there, especially Holt Chris, especially him. I know he's kind of, let's say, a little evil in the sense of he can't wait to fuck with players. Like he's just so. I guarantee you that he's sitting there. laughing thinking about all the ways he can mess with people and do stuff like that. So you're going to see stuff that's intentional development progress, and then you're going to see stuff that's Adam and Chris messing with you.
Nice. So Calidor, so you have a couple of projects going for us in the forums. You started a thread where you were having everybody chronicle the props that come with each layout. Do you think you got all of that squared away? Did you get enough people participating that you feel like you got all of the props for each layout, or is that a
Not
work in
even
progress? Oh, not
not
even
even
close.
close. I got about 2 or 3 for each type of house, so at least it gives an idea if somebody's contemplating buying the furniture upgrades, what they actually get for a tenement or a house or cottage or a manse. But no, I didn't get anywhere close to all the layouts. I'm really hoping once we can peer to peer and go into other people's houses, people just invite me over and let me do it myself. So it'll
Wow,
go a lot faster.
that's nice. Yeah, we had I played Wizard 101 for I think like 2010 to 2013, and we had a grandma playing with us over there, Paige Moonshade, and she was our housing guru there. She would host decorating contests every few weeks. And anytime a new set of props came out, she'd host a new decorating contest. So it's kind of fun to me to have someone else so into housing. I'm looking forward to that becoming even a bigger thing once we are able to jump into each other's houses. Now, Kedrin, so we were trying this project where each of us were going into our house and jotting down what the props were, but then we started finding out that we don't have common terminology for what we're seeing. And I was actually kind of hoping that there was some way in inventory that we could place our props in some kind of inventory that would name each thing, because I'm assuming that as an asset, they each have a descriptive name like gold
They do.
vase or something
Yeah,
like
so
that.
everything has a name and value. So we actually did go through and Adam and Chris and I are very like we're very like strict on ourselves, and I mean as you can even tell, like I'm strict on like the visual quality of things going out. Um, it's for us it's important to where we don't want to put ourselves in a spot where we have to come back later and make things make sense. We want to go into something with everything already structured. So we already have a systems design. I mean, it definitely has stuff that we need to fill out as things come online later, but everything has a value. So every house, if you buy a furnishing package, it has literally the level designer, like when Tone and James were building decorating the houses or furnishing them all, they were they literally had like text come up on the screen that says, "Here's your budget," and every time they'd place an object down or whatever, it would tally up. So like the expensive bed was cost a lot, so it would actually add it up. So that's how we measured the amount of furnishing that went into each house and made sure that it was like, okay, every tenement building has roughly the same amount of props in them because you as a player when you purchase the furnishing kit, we wanted to make sure everyone in each house tier essentially got the equivalent of the same amount. Now states are different, completely different, but yeah. So everything does has names. We have what they're made of. So we're already tracking like what are the components that actually craft them and everything. So we've definitely gone in and really detailed that stuff out. So I mean, a lot of it is still at the same time we're like, okay, what what is a prop, and we try our hardest to not make things in the game world that doesn't seem like it would that's what I call useless objects, just like the useless house thing. We want things to be functional as possible. Now there definitely are a lot of stuff that are just decoration, right? But we want to plan
So
for.
wait, so give me some examples of what you consider a useless prop would be, and what is something that you consider might just be decoration.
um well, I would say like let's say, for example, like in most games, if you had like a pile of wood, like logs, right? Um, if you just saw this pile of wood, you'd be like, "Oh, what is that?" Okay, that's nothing. Usually, we would never go anywhere. We'd never do anything. Well, in revival, we believe in depleting resources and stuff that depletes, right? So if you ever see piles of stuff, like even we always consider like how do we represent like a pile of apples, for example. Well, if you're going to eat them, like most places you would see like a bag of grain or something like that in a game. You're like, okay, the grain is always stays the same, but we actually want things to deplete visually. And so I think that's more like on the interaction front of like a resource. For example, a prop that maybe you wouldn't specifically use as far as like pick it up and actually use it would be like, let's say, a quill or whatever, like ink quill. Like you're not going to actually use that object when you're writing the book, right? The book system, but you have to have it to write the book, but you're not actually using it. You know what I mean? Like so.
Gotcha. Hmm.
Um, and then there's stuff that's just purely decoration. For example, like um, a rug. I don't know. Yeah,
Okay.
just
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
there's we want to minimize like stuff that because our big thing, and I've gone so many times talking to Adam and Chris whenever we were going over the skills. I didn't want there to be skills in the game that feel like they're just there for purely role playing and not useful. Like,
Hmm.
but in the sense of when I say not useful, I mean there's no high end of the game for the player that, for example, um, you know, Adam, Chris, and I we've gone back and forth a lot on cartography and what does that actually entail. And my whole thing is I always want to make sure that if somebody is spending all their time in the game, they're like, my character is a cartographer or he's a candle maker, that there is something at the end of the tunnel for him to get a lucrative experience, not necessarily money, but some sort of rich experience at after all the hours he's put into playing that. So every single skill must have that, and so that's kind of that same theory applies to our props, to our houses, like and like we want to we want to reward everybody for every way they want to play, and not just make it a game where only warriors come in and it's definitely a violent world, but we want people that are just like the sales guy. You have a very good future ahead of you, type stuff. So
Yeah, one of the things that I'm looking forward to is just even again in the beginning, once we can visit each other's houses, is to have parties and have somebody cook for us and have a spread, or someone we've got to at some point we'll have crafting beer. So maybe that's what somebody does. They bring their beer to the party, and
yep,
maybe I envision us looking out at a telescope to see the stars. That's what the person who owns the house does. But when you come to that party, somebody brings the beer, somebody brings the food, and I think what I hear you kind of saying there is that the food that we might see or the food that we might craft we might be able to place down on the table, or the
absolutely.
beer that we craft, we'll be able to place that down on the table.
Hmm.
That's kind of what I've been looking forward to for sure. So I'm
Yeah,
glad
and
to
you're
have
gonna
that
get a
confirmation.
crazy experience with that because it's we've talked about it before in one of the blogs with cooking, but it's cooking goes all the way down to the resource from that where it was farmed or how the animal was trained, like how was the meat raised, but you got it from this special farm, and so you got this special meat mixed with these other special ingredients, creating truly unique dishes. So I mean, you might have some crazy, someone spiked the punch type experience because you never know. Some person there just got something, and now all of a sudden everyone's like transferred into another dimension. I don't know. Like, yeah.
I
You're in
hadn't
your
thought
house
about
having
that.
fun, and all of a
That's
sudden you're fighting for your life.
Yeah, and we have transfigurations. I've been thinking about other kinds of drugs, but you know, paralyze people to get information,
Mhm.
or um, pain or stuff like that. But that's interesting. I hadn't even thought about. And we have Calidora with us, who has an alchemy lab. Huh.
There is no
Nah.
correlation.
I'm just thinking I might have to be careful what kind of potions you're cooking up there. Um,
Have
so
to
you've
check
got,
in on the farm all the time, see what she's growing.
yeah. Um, so what are you planning to do with your alchemy lab? Why did you choose alchemy as your renovation kit, Calidora?
Generally, I play healers in most games, a support class, so I figured that would be a good way. Besides, if I decide to go darker, nobody will suspect the healing potion I'm handing them.
Um, you shouldn't actually have shared that because I never would have thought about that. Wow, that that's that's dark. Um, and then you have a farm. What are you hoping to do with your farm? Are you going to be doing vegetables? Are you going to be doing animal husbandry? What's the plan with the farm?
I assume I'll be able to grow the things that I need, that I find useful if I'm working on a certain type of potion or need to make something.
Gotcha, gotcha, gotcha. Okay, somewhat self-sufficient there. Um, and so you also have a. Are you? I think you have a project. It might even be the same project that you're working on that you're hoping to transfer over to Wiki.
Yeah, it's been a process. People have tried to tell me what's in their houses, and there are a billion different ways to describe one small, rough wooden table. So trying to decide that it's we're all talking about the same thing has been interesting.
Mhm. Kedrin, is there going to be a way at some point for us to figure out what the standard name is for these objects?
Yeah, I think we could probably release that. I don't see why we would hold off on that so much. I'll talk to Adam and Chris about that and see if there's any way we can. I don't see why not. We can release a table. I mean, it's all there. It's not. I mean, there's certain stuff you'll certainly want to like maybe not reveal, but we can talk about the information, what they're made of, and what the rough estimate value is, and things like that. But again, the rough estimate value is just out the gate rough estimate value because our
Yeah.
economy doesn't work that way. Nothing's like set in stone value. So, um, but yeah, so I can probably work with those guys and get you guys something so you can take a look at that. I'm sure everyone will really like that.
Yeah, I mean, I hadn't even thought about. Well, I mean, we did kind of try to go through different materials in that. I think um, because some plates seem to be wooden, some seem to be pewter, some seem to be china, and I don't even know if China can actually be a real word or
Sure.
term in the lesson since we won't have an actual country named China.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm very interested to see too how all those different area names might play into our types of materials. Um, Calidori, do you have any more general questions right now about furniture for Kedron? Or anything you want to say about that?
Is it going to be possible at any time to maybe not have everything snapped to? Back in Star Wars Galaxies, you everything had a you could put it down in your house, and then you could make things out of things that they weren't meant for. I had a full kitchen and all kinds of things that I built out of mechanical parts that didn't even shouldn't have even been in a house, and that was always a lot of fun.
So I think Adam and Chris and I have talked about this in great detail, and I think because Chris's wife would actually in EverQuest 2 would she was doing that stuff like all over the place, like making crazy concoctions out of all sorts of stuff. I mean, I think at the end of the day, though, I think it goes back to what I've always said about customization is I want to give a lot of customization options down the road to where players can do a lot and experience a lot, but we still maintain our grounding of this is like a serious world, and we want to make sure that that's always, we want to, instead of being, I understand their desire to do it, but at the same time, I want to make sure that everybody's experience is, and throughout the world of revival, is consistent. and so it's always like having control, but then maximizing the options more so. So you have tons of options, but you're still within the system that makes everybody have a completely even experience. Because you are going to have thieves in this game, and you are going to have people breaking into your house. So um, that's something you may be like, oh well, only I'm coming into my house. I mean, you can certainly do a lot of things for security, but you're never going to foolproof yourself from somebody who really wants to get in your house. The more protection you get on your house, the more someone's going to want to break into your house. So it's like, oh, look at that little tenement. It's got the most ridiculous door and lock on it I've ever seen. That guy's hiding something. I want to get in there. So, and so for that thief, I want to make sure that when he comes into your house, someone hasn't made out of swords a giant dick butt shrine. Like I don't. So it's for me. It's like it's just consistent experience across the board is more so like is our goal, but and giving you options to still have a lot of cool freedom within it.
Yeah, I think the term we've been seeing in the forums is rule of world.
Mhm.
So that you go on and you feel like, because it's kind of more about creating a world than creating a game. I mean, technically it's a game, but what's really
Yeah,
being built is a world.
absolutely.
Um, and don't want to give so much freedom that, like you said, you're building freestanding phallic symbols out of swords.
Yeah.
Um, but hopefully, I mean, that's kind of interesting because I know in Wizard 101, people were doing similar things, building mazes out of different kinds of props and but stairways and all kinds of stuff. But even if you took, you know, there's still some leeway to take a bunch of barrels and build a maze, or take a
Mhm.
bunch of props and build a maze. It's just gonna be closer to what you would have to do in the real world than um, magic
Absolutely.
stuff, because stuff doesn't snap to, or the physics aren't working right, or
Yep. We might release some stuff that is levitating, and people are always going to find ways to do stuff. They always are. So yeah, like you said, I would not be surprised. The amount of props that are in an estate is absolutely insane. Like it is so ridiculous, and the grand halls are so big that yeah, I can only imagine people grabbing every bookcase in the entire estate, bringing them all into the grand hall, and doing the craziest things you've ever seen with them.
yeah, your mention of people always finding some way to do it is reminding me of, there's a, well, spoilers, but there's a scene in Deadpool where he creatively writes out a message to one of his enemies, and that reminded me of WoW. But
Right?
that's funny. Yeah, people. That's when people talk about AI in games. One of the things that I say is that once AI become as ruthless as people are, I'm going to stop playing MMORPGs, because you know I can find a way to get around combat with AI in
Yeah.
a way that you can't do with people. Um, but let's see what else. So, anything else, Calidora? I'm going to try to move this more into some general talk about. We've got estates, and then soon we're going to be. I mean, not soon. At some point, we'll be moving on to other cities, and I'm kind of interested in what the housing might look like for that too. So I'm going to move on to those topics. If you've exhausted what you'd like to talk about, Calidora, about furniture.
Actually, I had a question that moves on to another
Oh,
city
go. Yeah,
format.
whatever.
So,
Yeah, go ahead.
so the houses we've meant they I can't remember. I think it was Ombwa who said that they might have courtyards. Will they fall into the same housing decoration so you leave your body and can decorate outside inside your house?
No, because as soon as you leave your house, you're back in the world. So even though you might have a courtyard, you're actually leaving your house, and so you totally could find somebody. Somebody could scale your house, be on your roof, go into your courtyard, and be inside that area. So the system that is for exterior houses is a lot different than interior, and a lot of that is fixed with performance and being online in the server and everything like that. That we have to really control that. Because yeah, the whole it's not currently in there 100%, but you can see that when you go into decorate mode, your character is still standing there. So it's going to be a lot different when we're start revealing that a little bit more once the city starts being made, and because we have some serious technical limitations there we have to consider. So we're still trying to figure out what are those limitations before we just start promising everything that's involved with them. But for right now, that's the plan. I would say we're definitely playing it safe there and being like, yeah, we can't really hold that because you never know. Like when you're decorating inside a house in your instance, it's easy for us to light your building on fire on the exterior and then simulate that inside. But if now all this custom built stuff is there, interacting with that from a content creator perspective is a lot different.
One of the last week, I think it was, we were talking about the calendar system and clocks, and I think in one of those threads, so there was a thread where people were hoping that the user interface did not have a timekeeping system that people would use whatever is available in game, and they were saying, like the bells from the clock tower could ring, and we'd hear that inside. What is the level of back and forth that we would have in terms of sounds outside being heard inside housing? Is there going to be some possibility? What's the bleed through back and forth between the instancing of the housing and what's happening outside?
So we really believe in immersion, and I think audio is an extremely important part of that. And it's like what you're saying. There's certain key events that happen in a city or wherever you are that you would definitely hear, like a bell ringing. And it's all ties back into the neighborhood system too. So if you live in a neighborhood that's like let's say on a heavy marketed area, like you have one of the commercial buildings, and you're in one of the row houses, and they're all stacked together. You can expect right there on the street there's going to be a lot of noise, a lot of foot traffic, based on the time of day. So you would hear that outside, all of the noise and stuff coming from those windows from one area. But if you go to the back of the house, it could be quiet, right? So we definitely will simulate that, and we'll simulate it based on all that per situation, right? So your neighborhood will be the thing that really dictates that. So not necessarily, if it would be kind of generalized, like, oh, my house is all the way here on the left, and the main street's here. But we try to simulate it for everybody. So it's and then at night it'll go quiet, and you want it to be quiet at night, right? Because if you're a thief sneaking around, or you're trying to murder somebody, or something like that, or you might want to be loud, so you can be loud as well, right? So no one could hear you scream because you're it's really loud outside. So all that stuff we'll definitely simulate that, but it's going to be approximate, not 100% accurate. Like if somebody's like banging an anvil right outside your window because your neighbor has like an anvil outside his house, you may not necessarily hear that inside your house, but we'll simulate the approximate of activity going on around you.
I don't know that quite drummed up alt number 23, but it gave me a scenario that I'm gonna have to try and play out. Um, how to distract people when you're trying to commit a murder. Um, so yeah, I was thinking about neighborhoods. One that sounds like maybe we could stand to have a noise map as one of the heat maps that we currently have for
Certainly.
um, the different neighborhoods. But in terms of this isn't quite housing. Going back to what the one person was thinking about in terms of stage two, or wherever it is that we start moving into the outside and walking around the city offline. Um, Is that going to be neighborhood by neighborhood, or how are you going to do that in a modular fashion? What's the plan for that?
I'm sorry, there's a siren again. I live right beside
Yeah.
a fire station, so it's constantly going by. Could you repeat that again?
So, rolling into stage two, when we start
Yeah.
gaining access to wandering around the city offline, what's the vision for that modular rollout? Is that going to be neighborhood by neighborhood, or how will we get access to
You know,
first venturing outside of our homes?
sure. So I think, right now my current plan is I always feel like if I've thought about, okay, let's make it a neighborhood and then the next neighborhood. The problem with that is someone's going to get the short end of the stick on that, and that's always the problem, right? Like if I decide I'm going to do this neighborhood first and like do like a counterclockwise or clockwise motion through the city and just building neighborhood neighborhood, the person that's all the way on next to this part is going to have to wait all the way until the end to get their house area.
Yeah,
What I mean? So
yeah, but I don't know that I care whether or not my neighborhood is represented as long as I can go visit some neighborhood, right?
sure,
I mean, that's the way I feel.
hmm
Um,
it's a
because I just
possibility.
want to explore something. But
Yeah.
so what is the vision for letting us into the city?
So I mean, there's the massive hurdle right now is how are we going to? So this is the next big challenge, right? And we're learning this when we're building the estates, is severe limitations in rendering, right? The city of Crowns Rock is massive. It's a really big city, but even still, in the grand scheme of things and what we're planning, it's pretty small. But there's a lot of unique houses, and how do we make that modular, and how do we make it so where draw primitives aren't skyrocketing and making it so you just can't render. One thing I'm planning is my first plan is actually investigate that thoroughly because I don't want to start just making everything and then come to find out it can't perform on anyone's computer at all. So there's the number of steps, and there's really this middleware program I really want to get, but it's really expensive. It's something that essentially merges assets together, so they can once you get farther away from them, it just immediately like merges everything together. So it's kind of just super simplifies everything. Um, and that's like so I'm going to try to find my own way of doing that in a constructive manner, like a good development process to get that same result. um, but so that's going to be the first thing and figure out how that can work with modularity, so whenever I'm walking down the street, and I'm seeing all these cottages, just because it's a hill, right? So if you're on top and you're in the cathedral, for example, and you go over there, you're going to look down on the entire city. So we got to make sure that there's good people over there. What are we going to do on performance? If that's why I am putting walls between the neighborhoods so we can at least have some. But there's games that have done this thing quite a bit, like Assassin's Creed and stuff. So there's a lot of lessons to be learned there. But it's the problem is with games like that, it's built off of usually single player, not all of them, but they're also the world's not planned to be dynamic like what we're planning to do, right? So we have to think smart, and I try my hardest to not be like I'm just going to give you guys a smoke and mirror representation of what it's going to be like, and then a couple years from now be like, oh well, I guess our life storytelling system is not going to work with any of that, so we're going to have to change everything. So it's like we want to take our time researching that stuff. So that's our biggest step, and then yeah, just piece by piece, it's going to be terrain, and then getting all the foliage, and then getting all the buildings and everything like that all built up. But I've done plenty of outside open world stuff over my career, so I'm pretty confident about it and getting through it pretty quickly.
Cool. We do have a question from chat. Um, for you, it's from Donnie Ergo, I believe. How do you see people who own a lot of property, or even just one house, but who want to go away from that city? What will they be able to do with their houses? I know most of the people think about property as something anchoring them in one city.
You certainly can get property in other cities, and deed sacrifice, or as we figure out our transferring between player systems. That's going to be an option as well. So I wouldn't look at it as anything that's like, oh, I'm rooted here and I'm stuck here. It's definitely, we're open to that. And we want to build our economy to very much be something that's kind of capitalist a little bit. So it's like it is like definitely, if you're an entrepreneur, spirited type of business person, and you want to be a real estate mogul, then that's absolutely possible. You could be the Donald Trump of revival. Please don't be the Donald Trump.
I'm actually kind of hoping I'll be able to do some bartering because if I could, I'd be a commie barter instead
Yeah.
of a capitalist, but that's not the country that I live in. Um, Hopefully, I can find that area in somewhere in Theleston. Um, and let's see what this. Oh, someone was asking about VR. Hold on one second. Are there any plans for VR support?
Absolutely. Like Ilphonic is definitely we're Revival is our first and earliest and easiest test bed for VR. As far as like all of our games because it's out, it's so we can. The problem right now is Unreal Engine doesn't support proper UI and like the 2D interface and mouse interaction and everything like that in VR right now. So if that was working, we'd release it tomorrow. Like it's literally that easy. So right now, like I was playing with VR just the other day, and with the Rift, and it's awesome. Like I really want people to be like, oh, I'm decorating my house and get the vibe, and you're like actually using the controllers and like picking the plate up and moving around. Like it's gonna be amazing. But we gotta it's as soon as we get over this. It's really on Epic, and they're being very supportive and working on it, but it's not something we can fix right now at least. I mean, we just need to hang in there and wait till they get the support for that, and then we'll release it. No problem.
Cool. Donut asks, how far will the field of vision slider go? Detailed? Will there be a detailed UI and graphics tab for the ultimate customization?
I believe in options, and I believe in players customizing things as much as they want, but I also believe in quality control, of course. And I firmly believe in FOV sliders. Like even Nexus, our game Nexus had an FOV slider inside of it, and I always suggest like if we can keep it pretty wide, so players that like the old school FPS games when FOVs were pretty wide, or third person games. I won't say we're gonna let you go as crazy as doing like a 180-degree FOV. It just doesn't make any sense. I mean, you could be crazy and like that stuff, but if we're dealing with stuff like Infinity and stuff too, like FOV is a serious thing for that. So, um, I believe in getting as much customization as possible, but at the same time, as long as it doesn't ruin the game experience for if you're live streaming, for example, it's somebody who's never heard of Revival and they jump on and see you playing Revival, and you got some weird, obscure graphics customization that makes the game like look like doo doo, then it's like that's going to hurt us really bad. So I want to make sure that we quality control it to where you can customize it and have a good experience, but also if somebody looks in, they're not their expectation isn't ruined.
Calidor, so I'm looking through the dev blog again right now at some of the estates, the images that we have. Um, were there surprises for you in the appearance of some of these estates, Calidora, that you weren't expecting?
I didn't expect so many of the gothic ones. That was a really pleasant surprise and something that made me look at my bank account again.
Well,
Yeah.
those are going to be pretty expensive, so whew. Um, yeah, I was almost going to say I would hope maybe you could get some manses at some point at some places that might be a more gothic style that's a more scaled down version of that because we're expecting those estates to be a couple of thousands maybe.
I think with us, we're still figuring out. the prices, because there's a lot of things that go into that. You know, the square footage of it, the total overall perceived value, and things like that. But so I don't want to go too much into like what the prices of them are going to be, but they're not. I definitely, I'm always upfront. They're not cheap, but a lot of that is for controlling how many people have them, because it is a premium thing. It's not something that you need in the game. It's not something that breaks the game for other people or anything like that. It's not anything that's pay to win. It's just a very premium option for players that want it. I will say that the estates are going to feel very, 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 very lonely if you don't, if you want to be the crazy Dracula in the castle. They are ridiculously huge. I mean, you guys, I think you saw the live stream of me going through the guild hall, and that took forever just to walk through it and show everything. So one of the estates, the biggest one, I actually had Tone remove an entire floor this past week because it was just so big that I was just like, this is overkill. You're just walking down these massively long hallways forever. And you're just like, oh man, this is so big. So yeah,
So
you're being for surprise.
that just had an interesting thing because I kind of again, I'm kind of looking forward to having parties, smaller parties, larger parties. But the way you describe that, it seems like you could have several parties going on in one estate.
You could absolutely. It's like they're so massive. You could do
Ha-
anything in there.
So on this in this estate where you removed a whole floor, how many players do you think you could fit on one floor?
Mm, a lot. um,
25, 50?
I would like if they were just crammed in there.
Well,
I would,
like in a party,
a
not like
party.
trying to,
Well,
cram people into a
you have
telephone booth. What's that? A telephone booth. But, not try to cram everybody in one space, but just, mingling or
yeah.
comfortable space.
I could easily see in one of these estates somewhere. I mean, technically limiting. I don't know. There's limitations there on the amount of people that could be in that place, but I could easily see like about 200 to 300
On a
people
floor?
on a floor easily. Like the estates are
Wow.
like you essentially maybe took 10 manses or so. I don't even know. I think that might still be too small. They're big.
Wow. Okay. Okay.
So, yeah.
Let's see. This is coming from Comrade Headclot. For larger scale conflicts involving troop movements, are there plans for HoloLens, Cast AR, or other AR devices? AR is augmented reality,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Well,
we haven't really experimented or made any plans with AR yet. I love AR. I love the concept and thought of it, but you have to vary. Like, I understand what he's saying. Like it is a cool way to interact, especially always from like the commander type perspective. Like everyone saw that mobile strike commercial with Arnold Schwarzenegger. We walked in the room and everyone wants that experience, right? It's cool, but we just at Ilphonic we haven't really spent any time investigating AR. So I'm not saying that it will or won't ever happen. It's just we haven't had time to look into it.
nice. Okay, I'm gonna check chat one more time. Any other questions you had, Calidora? It's about time to wrap up.
Nope.
Okie dokie. So you're thinking about an estate. What specific estate style were you? One of the Gothic ones? I think we have two, right? Which one? 30 Crown Road,
The one
29 Crown Road,
the one in the Westgate Farms off the west side of the city. That was the one I was looking at.
21 Westgate Lane, it looks like. Okay.
I think that's one of the more Victorian style. It's still Gothic, but it's definitely more Victorian. Lots of wood paneling and stuff like that in them.
Hmm.
It reminds you more of a chateau than anything, I would say.
And so what are you waiting for right now for the estates? What are the last things that you're working on with the estates?
So right now we have issues with lighting. It's just the lighting is something that I really personally do not feel. I've definitely complained about it publicly. We still seriously need a solution for it. Um, because we don't bake lighting, we have dynamic lighting, and Unreal doesn't have a proper system to support it yet. Um, so it's definitely something I'm still investigating, and I want to get fixed. We also have just some bug fixing we have to do, and then we're drawing the layouts. So the layouts you see on the store, and we have to change the store so we can actually add more images to horizontally scroll because there's just not enough image slots for all the floor plans.
Wow.
So that's we gotta, and we're trying to figure out how we're even going to cram all those floor plans on. And then I want to do video like camera fly throughs of every single one, so everyone gets a good chance to look at it before committing to purchasing something like that. But that's all we have to essentially do before we release it. So it's very close. I mean, I think there's problems with the occlusion popping, which it kind of is a bummer, but I think we're going to find a solution soon. That's when you turn the camera really fast, you'll just see pieces just popping in because it's just, especially in the grand halls, because they're so big and open and just made out of tons and tons of small parts all over the place.
Cool. Yeah. Um, there's always more to do. It's always a challenge, but this is one of the reasons why I just, nerding out over the lighting is why when somebody said we're going to get to go around in the cities and see wireframe buildings,
Yeah.
that's just never
Yeah,
never going to happen.
I don't want people to experience that.
Okie doke. Well, if that's it, I don't see any more. Wait, there's a suggestion for Kedron. Look into approximate hybrid ray tracing on the UE4 forums if you need dynamic lighting. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Um, Okie doke. Well, I think that's going to wrap us up for this show. Thank you guys for taking some time to talk about housing. I was not expecting Kadrian actually when I said last week we got to have you on. I wasn't expecting it to happen this quickly. So I'm glad you had some free time though. We love having you on when you're available. Um,
Awesome.
what um, shows are coming up? I mean, like PAX. You just finished PAX. Um, what's coming up in terms of public showcases of Revival?
Um, so Revival's not currently planned on any show because I mean I've always like thought about that, like how can I show Revival on a show floor. I mean, if I just set up house decorate mode, it may not make sense. People may not get it,
Hmm.
but it's still a possibility. I really want to do something at Denver Comic Con out here in Denver, just because it's easier, we don't have to pay for flights, and I can actually have my staff, because it's definitely would be a very heavily involved, you have to talk to people as they come
Hmm.
because you have to really explain everything. um, but I think for me, it's I want to figure that stuff out. And right now, our other projects like Moving Hazards about to come out of early access, and then Friday the 13th, the game is being made. So that's kind of whenever we're going to things like GDC and E3 and stuff like that. Those are me and Chuck being out there. That's kind of more our focus, because I just don't have anything to really show for Revival right now. But I definitely want to. I want to figure that out because I think there's a great chance, but I'm always, and like I said, I've always kind of earlier, like I've always been like kind of holding back or going against press because I want people to understand it, and I love the fans and I love our community so much because you guys get it, you understand what we're doing, and you get where we're going. But I feel like until we have more ammunition, I don't want to necessarily go out there and be like, hey, everybody, look at us, because they're going to be like, I don't get it yet.
Right.
There's a lot to read, on Revival
Right.
that, and that to a lot of the average consumer, I'm not, downplaying them or anything, but it's, sometimes you're like, oh, too long, don't read, like,
Yeah.
right? So it's,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I want to get that figured out before we really start turning up the opening the floodgates and stuff like that.
Great. Okie dokie. Well, thank you again. Just to let anybody who happens to be in chat know, we will be taking an hour break and coming back with hazardous play. So Kadrin can tell us about Ilphonic's other game, Moving Hazard. Um, that wraps us up for this week. I think I'm hoping to have Lethality on with Sailkite and me and Polaris next week. I don't remember what the topic is, but those are the people we hope to have on cam with us. Thanks for showing up, and we'll see you next time.